bottom, 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 bottom.
Hi, and welcome to the Dr. TV video tutorials. Today we'll be installing the Abyss web server. Later we'll learn how to use it for ASP.NET and PHP to develop databases. Let's get started with the install. The first thing we need to do is download the Abyss web server. So we'll click on the Abyss web server X1. It's the free one. And then we want to select download Abyss web server for Windows. Have several different versions, but I'm only focusing on the Windows one. Click download. When it appears, save the file wherever you want to. In this case, I'm going to save it on the desktop. And once it's downloaded, we'll go over how to install it. Now that we have the Abyss web server downloaded, we want to install it. Find where you installed it. In my case, I put it on the desktop. Double click it to open it. Windows will ask you if you want to install it. Click yes. You will then get the license agreement. Click I agree. And then I usually just leave all the settings at default and click next. Then it'll ask you where you would like to install it. I'm going to use the defaults. You can select whatever folder you want to. And then we'll let it install. And as soon as it installs, we'll go over the configuration. Once the software has installed, it will ask you to start up. You have the manual startup, the automatic startup when you log on, or as installed as Windows service. I normally choose as a Windows service because I want the server to be available all the time. You can choose whatever preference you would like to use. And then we click OK. And now it's installed as a Windows service. Click OK. And we start the web server. It tells me that a configuration file was created, and go ahead and access the console. Now we're in the very first part of the Abyss setup. We want to choose a language, English. I am not sure what all the languages Abyss supports, but I'm sure you can find it out on their webpage. English for this tutorial. Now it will ask you to create a login for your web server. You log in with whatever username you want to create. Once you have created your username and password, click OK. It will now log you into the main Abyss console. Once you're in the main console, you can see that you're running on port 80, that the server is running, and you can stop it and configure it, and which will go into how to configure it. If you want to test it and see, you can keep it at all the defaults. You can go to a blank web page, type in localhost, and you should see this page that's appeared right here. That shows that the server's up and running, and it's using the default index file or default HTML, whichever you prefer or use. Okay, so now we go back to the console and we want to set it up. So we go into configure, and the first thing we want to do is point it to where we have our web page, where we work from. If you want to leave it at the defaults, that's fine. Go into the General tab, and it shows you where it's working from right now. which it shows you all the different configurations where you can change the protocol. You can change it to HTTP secure or both. I'll leave it at HTTP for now. You can pick a port. If you don't want to use port 80, you can change the port to whatever you would like to change it to. 8000, 8080, other port. You can pick whatever port you want to use. A lot of people use 8080 for their local machine. I'm going to leave it at 80 because I want it accessible on my local network. And it shows you the documents path, in this case htdocs. The htdocs folder, the default, if you left everything at default when you installed it, will be located under C, Abyss Web Server, and htdocs. And there's the test index HTML that we looked at a few moments ago. I myself don't use the default web page. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't. I have a separate folder I use because I experiment with several different web pages. I keep mine on a different drive. So we go into Browse and then select the drive your files are on or that you want to put them on. In this case, mine is the L drive. Select L, go to where I keep my websites, click on htdocs, that's where my main folder is, and this time we click select. It goes back, it shows me now my main folder is L websites htdocs. Click OK. Now it asks you to restart the server to apply the changes. We restart it. This takes a couple of seconds. Once it's restarted, it will show you that you're up and running on port 80 and back to the main thing, stop and configure. So now that we have pointed it to a new page, we can test to see if our page is up and running. We'll go to a blank tab. In this case I have one open already, and type in localhost. And boom, oh, what happened? Well, we're back to the test web page that comes with Abyss Web Server. Well, what happens is that in this case, this is the Firefox browser. Chrome often does the same thing as does IE. It's caching the old web page we tested a while ago. What we can do is go up here and type in 127.0.0.1, which is the same thing as localhost. And then boom, there's our web page. Now keep in mind you have to have a default HTML or index HTML in the website that you want to use. This is it for this tutorial. Next we will configure for PHP, ASP.NET, and add our index files. See you next time.